and welcome to my video series examining Missing 411 Eastern United States. This video is going to focus on the next section of the book, Ohio. This chapter intro has the usual ooh spooky bit by Paulides, where he points out similarities in gender and missing date in cases that he handpicked. I gave enough personal exposition last time on why I feel that that's invalid, so we'll just jump right in. Carolyn Peterson. Carolyn, who is 20 months old at the time, went missing on August 20th, 1947, from 10 miles south of Marion, Ohio. Carolyn was placed in the yard by her mother and told to play. A short time later, her mother came to check on her and she was gone. Law enforcement was contacted immediately and a search was conducted. Soon after she disappeared, heavy thunderstorms hit the area. 2 days into the search, the sheriff called it off, citing that he believed she had been kidnapped by a childless couple. The next day, on the 23rd, a neighboring farmer heard a faint voice from a briar patch. He checked it out, and he found Carolyn, alive and with blackberry stains on her hands. She was found to have dozens of scratches, but didn't have a sunburn despite being missing for more than 4 days, which doctors could not explain. You might already see what's wrong with this, but let's go and review the points. 1 and 2 are correct. As for law enforcement being contacted immediately, there was a 4-hour lag time, but compared to some of the other cases, yeah, that's fairly quick. Point 4 seems to be correct. Point 5, about the kidnapping. Yes, that was the initial theory, that a childless couple found her and abducted her, but all of those theories were immediately dropped when she was found. The reason why these theories had come up in the first place is because Carolyn's favorite toy was found beside the road. Paulides didn't mention it in the book, but she was found just 800 feet from where she had gone missing in the first place. As for the sunburn, doctors could explain it. She had been sheltered under these dense bushes. The bushes were so dense, in fact, that the neighbor who found her said that you couldn't see more than a couple of feet into the brush. Additionally, the thunderstorms that Paulides mentioned earlier would have made it very cloudy. I mean, that's what thunderstorms are, and thus would have also provided some shelter from the sun. Further, she was hospitalized for several days. It's not like she was fine. Let's carry on. Jerry Lee Huffman. Jerry, who was 3 years old at the time, went missing on August 5th, 1948, from Philo, Ohio. Jerry was playing with the family dog Laddie by himself in the front yard. At 6 p.m., his father realized that both Jerry and Laddie were missing. Jerry's clothes were found at the far end of the property, and his father called the authorities. Laddie came back home the next morning by himself at 6 a.m. Laddie then led the father and a neighbor 1.5 miles to a wire fence where Jerry was stuck. His foot was caught in the fence and a grapevine was wrapped around his neck. He was turning blue, but he was still alive. He was taken to the hospital and found to be in satisfactory condition. Jerry never explained why he left or what he did, nor why he removed his clothes. Let me again point out at this juncture that Paulides himself has noted that search and rescue manuals recognize the fact that children tend to remove their clothes, so that is normal. Interestingly, the authorities were contacted by a fire alarm. It's neither here nor there, I just thought it was interesting. The implication in the book is that he was turning blue from being strangled by the grapevine around his neck, but the articles are pretty clear that he was turning blue with cold, and I don't think that being hospitalized for exposure is considered satisfactory condition, but maybe that's just a difference in opinion. And as I already harped on, no, the 3-year-old didn't tell reporters what happened. So, he's 3. Does he have to say that he wandered off with his dog? Let's carry on. Randy Moy. Randy, who was 3 years old at the time, went missing on January 8th, 1960, from Vernon Township, Ohio. In the afternoon, 2 family dogs took off into the woods and Randy followed them. When his mother found out, she called for help and a search was launched. 17 hours into the search, he was found alive and well in a briar patch 1.5 miles away. The sheriff stated that he tried to question Randy about what happened, but that he refused to answer. Oh look, another case that's not a missing person who was never found and who has perfectly reasonable explanations around why they went missing in the first place. What do I mean by perfectly reasonable explanation? I mean, it says right here that the sheriff tried to question Randy, but he refused to answer, right? Well, it's misleading. To show you what I mean, I'm going to quote from the book directly. Quote, Sheriff Wayne Mumma stated that he tried to question Randy about his journey, but he refused to talk, close quote. It makes it sound like he was resisting interrogation or something. But let's take a look at what was actually reported. Many articles note that Randy was very shy, and the articles that Paulides is referring to clarify that, quote, Deputy Sheriff Wayne Mumma said the boy was too shy to tell him how he happened to wander off with his dog Friday afternoon, close quote. And with that, we've already hit the end of the Ohio chapter, since the other cases are already covered in previous sections. We're going to go ahead and get a head start into Pennsylvania, since there are a lot of cases there, and it'll probably be broken up into 2 or more videos as it is. This chapter begins with some claims about Pennsylvania having more disappearances than any other state, especially of children. It's incorrectly stated that no people went missing from 1957 to 1968, which is just ridiculous. If you don't believe me, just go ahead and check the Charlie Project or the Doe Network to verify. But let's get into the actual cases. Rita, who was 3 years old at the time, went missing on November 22nd, 1934, from North Richmond Township, Ohio. Rita was playing with the family dog Buddy at noon when her mother looked outside about 15 minutes later, and Rita and Buddy were both gone. Authorities were immediately called and a search was launched. Rain hit the area that night. Later, on the first night, Buddy returned but was completely dry, making investigators believe that Rita had been kidnapped. On February 16, 1935, a farmhand 2 miles away found the body of Rita, partially decomposed and missing a shoe in a mud pile. The coroner stated that he did not believe her body had been there for months, and that it must have been stored in a cool place for some time and then dumped there. The final report stated that she had died of natural causes. Paulides opines for some reason that the body was kept in a cave, but caves are insulated and are often warmer than outside, especially in winter months. Let's review. Paulides has left out some significant context, which changes how the average person would view the case. He does say that Rita's mother is separated from her husband at this time, but fails to mention that there was custody issues with the children. Olivia, Rita's mother, had pushed off her other 5 children to her husband and was trying to get him to take Rita as well. He didn't take her because he believed that Rita wasn't his. They had separated because of the mother's adultery, and it sounds like a very complex and nasty situation altogether, which explains why the police focused on her so much. It also brings into question her testimony, since she was the one who saw her last. Next is the comment about Buddy, the dog. Buddy was not completely dry, Buddy was comparatively dry. And when he had showed up, the rain had already stopped, so he would have had some time to dry off. As for point 7, about the coroner not believing that she had been there for a while, well, that's correct. The sheriff, the coroner, and everyone really were looking for evidence that she had been murdered by her mother. The statements about the condition of her body were clarified to be unofficial and pending the medical examiner's report, and everyone changed their minds after the report was finished. As far as I can see, no charges were filed as a result of the pathology report. The body was actually even released back to her mother. Marjorie West. Marjorie, who was 4 years old at the time, went missing on May 8th, 1938 from Marshburg, Pennsylvania. Marjorie was in a park with her family on Mother's Day. She and her sister had gone off on their own a short distance away. Her sister returned to her mother, leaving Marjorie alone for a while. When her sister went back to where she had left Marjorie, she was gone. A search was called for while her father searched the area on his own initially. Bloodhounds tracked her around the boulder that she was last seen, then to a dirt road, and then they lost the scent. It was theorized that she had been abducted and taken across state lines, but this is unconfirmed. She was never found. Pilates then leaves this nugget of wisdom with us. Quote, "When there are boulders in the area, the person is rarely ever found," close quote. So be careful whenever you find yourself near some boulders, I guess. In review, the points are all correct with some added context as well. A nearby cabin had been robbed, and law enforcement was concerned that whoever had robbed the cabin had also abducted Marjorie. Donald Farrington. Donald, who was 3 years old at the time, went missing on September 11th, 1938 from Holland, New York. Donald was on the other side of his home, headed towards the family's barn, when his father last saw him. After several minutes of searching, he called the authorities. Within an hour, police and volunteers were searching. The next day, a searcher found Donald alive but badly scratched up near a creek in a berry patch about 2 miles away. He had suffered from exposure but was in otherwise good shape. And in review, this is another solved case. But the information presented seems accurate from what I can see reported at the time. Ronald Rumbo. Ronald, who was 2 years old at the time, went missing on September 15th, 1940 from Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. Ronald's father left his 5 children alone in the yard as he walked to a nearby baseball game. When he returned a short time later, he found that Ronald was missing. The search had lasted for 3 days when the sheriff started talking about terminating the search soon. An airplane pilot and spotter found Ronald in the middle of a cornfield, alive but groggy. He was found to have scratches but was in generally excellent health. Officers still believed that he was kidnapped. Local police questioned Ronald many times, but it was almost impossible to get coherent answers out of him. Pilates notes that despite the 60-year gap between this case and a few others, they must be related due to some vague similarities and geographical proximity. The only misrepresentation here is that in Missing 411, this case is presented as the police settling on abduction and never changing that theory. However, while the abduction theory was indeed the primary thought when he was first found, it was dropped in the following days. They evidently did get Ronald to speak, as there was a later report on the 25th that Ronald had not eaten while he was missing and he had drank from streams. There is no mention of abduction at all in that article, and other articles as well note that he was unfed. So, yes, they eventually did get those answers. As for other cases being related, I don't understand what the suggestion is here. And I wonder if that's not by design. A lot of times I say that Pilates is alluding to Bigfoot, and I get a lot of backlash for that. People say he never says Bigfoot, he never offers an explanation. He doesn't point it out, and you're just trying to make him sound stupid. Sorry about that. We're back, and let's finish off this video with Rudy and Chick. Rudy, who was 4 years old at the time, went missing on October 21st, 1940, from Shepton, Pennsylvania. Rudy was with his father when he went missing, but his father isn't sure exactly when that happened because he was busy. Canines could not pick up Rudy's scent, and he was found alive but suffering from exposure after a 51-hour search. He was under a rock overhang about 2 miles from where he was last seen. Let's review. Canines could, in fact, pick up his scent. They followed it for about a mile before they lost it. And he also wasn't under a rock. His leg was stuck between two rocks about 3/4 of a mile from his home. With this short case, I'll stop here for now. We will continue with Pennsylvania and the surrounding area next time. Until then, take care.